Welcome to the Deeptime Network. We're a network, a community of people who are looking at the grand narrative of the universe as a foundational context for everything, really. And most of our members draw from 4 different lineages. There's a Montessori lineage, a New Story lineage, which includes Teilhard de Chardin, Thomas Berry, and Brian Swimme, and Mary Evelyn Tucker. There's a big history lineage, there's a systems theory lineage, and that would include people like Lynn Margulis and Fritjof Capra. So why are we here tonight? Well, we're here because, with all the sort of terrifying things that are happening in the world today, the chaos, it's really helpful and so important right now, especially, to get a bigger frame, to look at a bigger context. So what is the universe up to now? What's next? What's planetary mind? What kind of awareness might we need to tune into the larger arc of transformation? Who is the best person in the entire world to help us with these questions? Brian Swimme, of course. So I want to acknowledge our audience. We have an amazing audience. Alice Renton, Montessori elder and trainer in Colorado. Margaret Gagliardi, member of Sisters of Earth and author, retreat leader. Michael Duffy, author of Children of the Universe. Jean and Larry Edwards. Ann Lynch from Springfield, the Sisters of St. Joseph. I can just imagine Ann with that whole group there watching tonight. Tracy Penulo from the Ridge and Valley Charter School. Tracy, so glad you're here. You're doing amazing work. Brian, you have to see what this school is doing sometime here in New Jersey. Totally based on Thomas Berry, Brian Swimme, and also Montessori as well. Noha Tarek from Egypt, Christiana Prasetyo from Indonesia, John Fowler and Phil Gang from TIES, the Institute for Educational Studies, Margaret Rose McSparran from the Dramalis Retreat House in Ireland, overlooking the Irish Sea, looking towards Scotland, Sunniva Barrett of St. Catherine University. She's the program director there for the advanced Montessori programs. Linda Neal, she's been writing blogs on our network, leads retreats. Jennifer Barton, my sister-in-law, Nora Bolton from Toronto, Caitlin and Peter Adair. And their beautiful, beautiful calendars. Fred Adam from Spain, who's a filmmaker and won one of our awards. Martha Otis, artist in Princeton. Denise Tangney with the Guild of Spiritual Guidance. Alice Ewell, who's a Dominican with the Caldwell, New Jersey. Jeff Ainskow, who developed the Deeptime Walk app and cards. Joyce Rouse, who's Earth Mama, amazing music. Sam and Paula Guarnacha with the Emergent Universe Oratorio. Diza Velasco, Rock Haven Center in St. Louis. I'm just going to say a few more. Di Shearer in Australia. Betsy Crawford, writing beautiful blogs. Mary Coelho, who's written Awakening Universe. Mike Bell, who lived in the monastery with Thomas Berry and writes terrific blogs on the network. Jim McAllister, who's done films of Lynn Margulis. Nagesh Anand and Robert Athakal from India, who has done incredible work with the Cosmic Walk in India, just incredible stuff. Thank you so much for the work you're doing there, Nagesh and Robert. You are inspiring all of us. People around the world have picked up the Cosmic Walk with the way that you are doing it. John Layden Bing and Eileen Mandahar in the Philippines with the Center for Ecozoic Learning and Living. Thank you for everything that you're doing. Incredible work there, right in Manila and the surrounding areas. Shubha Narayan, Montessori in New Zealand. Lucy Lafitte, who's Vice President of the International Big History Association. Thank you, Lucy. So great that you're here. Elizabeth Sauturis, who wrote Earth Dance, Living Systems and Evolution. Gary Davidson with the Seaside Montessori Training Center and Azoka in Thailand. Herman Green with the Center for Ecozoic Studies in North Carolina. Betsy Coe, director of the Houston Montessori Teacher Training Center in Texas. Maxine Pullman with the School Sisters of Notre Dame. The Oblate Ecological Initiative in Godfrey, Illinois. John Hasse, who's a geologist, and so many, many more. So what's going to happen? Well, I'm going to do an opening meditation, and I'm going to introduce Brian. Brian will talk for about 20 minutes, and then we'll open for questions and conduct a poll, and then talk about some upcoming programs and resources. We will be finished by 8:15. So let me do a very short opening ritual to put us in the mood. I'm going to strike this Tibetan bowl 3 times and repeat 2 times the historical mission of our time, as articulated by Thomas Berry, with a moment of silence in between. So make yourself comfortable. And here we go. The historical mission of our time is to reinvent the human at the species level with critical reflection within the community of living systems in a time-dimensional context by means of story and shared dream experience. The mission of our time is to reinvent the human at the species level with critical reflection within the community of living systems in a time-dimensional context by means of story and shared dream experience. So, Brian.
Jennifer.
I've known you or known about you since 1997, and you changed my life. You and Thomas Berry and Miriam McGillis. Everything I'm doing since then is because of you and them. I'm so honored to have you here today.
Thanks, Jennifer.
So just to say, Brian is a professor at the California Institute of Integral Studies in San Francisco. He worked extensively with Thomas Berry and with Mary Evelyn Tucker, and he wrote with her and produced the Journey of the Universe book and video series. His book, Hidden Heart of the Cosmos, first published in 1996, has just been revised. This is absolutely a must. So Brian, what's next? What's Planetary Mind and what does it mean for the future?
Well, so good to be here. I just, I want to start off and say, what a rush it was to hear all those names. Whoa, and all that great work. And I just brought back to so many great memories. It's a thrill. It's a thrill to be here, Jennifer. You've created this planetary network, and to be part of it is what's next. That's what I feel like. We're part of Planetary Mind, which I'm going to be talking about. So just thrilled to be here is the main thing I want to convey, and so appreciative of all the work that is being carried forth by us. And after the great inspiration of Thomas Berry, it's a thrill to be alive. I wanted to start off with a bold statement that most of you would agree with, I think. But it's good just to start off with this just stark truth, I think, that the greatest discovery in 300,000 years of our existence is that the universe transformed from a relatively simple plasma into this complex place we live in today. That we know that now. We know the details of it. It's an astounding insight. We wandered around on this planet for almost 300,000 years, not knowing what had come in the past. So many scholars call this the greatest transformation in our understanding of the universe ever. So we have to realize that we're the pioneers. We're on this front wave, and we're doing everything we can to figure out what it says, but we have to be patient because it's going to take time. Who knows how long? But just the latest numbers, just to throw them out there. So plasma is like really simple particles. That's it. Really, really simple particles, and hot, molten, no structure beyond that. And now we estimate there are 2 trillion galaxies and at least 100 billion trillion planets. I mean, all of history was locked into the idea they had, 9 planets. Now we've got 100 billion trillion. Well, okay. Now, not only do we have the sense of the vastness of it, we know something about the fundamental transformations that took place. Just today, I was working out like a way of capturing those 6. So here they are. I wrote them all down. I mean, all of you, could say, Brian, there are 5 or there are 8, or these are just ways of capturing the whole. So the first transformation is from quarks and leptons into atoms. Then we have atoms transforming into stars and galaxies. Then we have stars transforming themselves into stellar systems with planets. And then in at least one stellar system, we have a rocky planet transforming itself into a living planet. And on this planet Earth, we have the amazing moment when cells transform themselves into plants, animals, and fungi. And then we have this last transformation that I'm mentioning here in this 6, life itself transformed into a species with a consciousness that became aware of itself. So humans not only know things, they know that they know. And this is the novel quality that we bring in. Now, what I wanted to celebrate here with you today is that we are in the 7th transformation. We're in the 7th. And the nature of that is what I wanted to reflect with you about. But before I say more about that, a couple things. Each of these transformations brings a new quality into the universe. It's just not more the same. It's something new comes forth with each one. Now, just to pluck out one, I thought I would think of the time in the early universe when we had stars and galaxies, but no planets. There were no planets anywhere, because to have that, rocky planets, because to have a rocky planet, you have to have the heavier elements. Those, as we all know here, had to be created in stars and then distributed with supernovas. So here's this amazing moment. There was a rocky planet that emerged that created the first ocean. What a moment. There had never been an ocean in the history of the universe. And then suddenly, because of this planet, there was an ocean. And likewise, the same thing happened with respect to a mountain. Some rocky planet out there in the universe created the first mountain. So I bring this up just to dwell on the fact that, I mean, wow, there was a primal mountain. Never a mountain before, now there's a mountain. I bring this up to celebrate the way in which the universe is always transcending itself and bringing forth something that was unimaginable before this moment. I do this because I want to celebrate the fact that that is what is happening now. We are in the midst of a transformation that's bringing forth something that has never appeared before. So, okay. I'm speculating here. I really want to drive that point home because it's essential to what I have to say. We don't know the future. What we do is we typically, like in science, as you all know, we take the fundamental principles that we've discovered in our era, and then we extrapolate. We imagine what would happen if we move forward in time, according to the principles that are at work. But we also know that new principles emerge in the universe. So we have to be very humble, and when we think about what's coming. So, but I want to call this transformation. It's the transformation to a planet, a living planet with a nervous system. And by a nervous system, I mean something that is coming forth now and that has been coming forth. It's a nervous system that has the power to shape the cosmic evolution of an entire planet. So that is what I am proposing, and others are proposing this. This isn't original to me in the least. The person who has influenced me the most is Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, and he called this planetary nervous system, he called it the noosphere. And it is it came to him one day that when he reflected back on the history of the planet, it began by forming a geosphere, the continents, a hydrosphere, the oceans and rivers, a biosphere, all of life, and now, with the appearance of Homo sapiens, a noosphere, a mind sphere, a sphere of thought. Now, the nature of this is what I wanted to ponder with you. But why? First of all, I know that we don't have a lot of time, So I'm just throwing things out boldly, but it all of this has to be thought about very carefully, because in particular, I don't want to suggest that humans are the only organisms with minds. I don't mean to suggest that. I also don't want to suggest that humans are taking over the planet and taking charge of the planet. These are certainly possibilities, but they're not what I'm promoting. So, but I am saying that the human species brings forth something really new, and that what is new is a consciousness that becomes aware of itself, as I was saying, that we know, and we know that we know, and we have created symbolic languages to give expression to this form of consciousness. That form of consciousness, with its symbolic language, has altered evolutionary dynamics that have been at work for 3.5 billion years. This is the key point, that humanity has actually turned evolution in the opposite direction in this sense. Previous to humans, when a species was coming up with something novel, it changed anatomically. And so that what we had in the tree of life is species that are fanning out and filling all the ecological niches. But with the human, it turns back upon itself, so that a new insight, a novelty in the human species becomes part of its cultural history. And that insight, that knowledge, is captured in language, as opposed to becoming part of the anatomy of a new species. So we have this amazing ability to deepen our understanding. Our minds that we're using have been developing for 300,000 years at the very least. In a deeper sense, we can talk about the development of the human mind going back for millions of years. But the point I want to get across is that instead of spreading out and having thousands of new species coming out of humanity, we have this one species that is folding its understanding deep within itself. And that is the origin, really, of the noosphere, when that begins to take place. Okay, now we move to a deepening of this question, and that is to ask this: how does the universe transform itself? How? Is it the case that there are outside forces that are in control of matter? Or is it rather the case that the universe transforms itself through deepening relationships of the entities themselves? Now, the point of view that I am persuaded by is that it is the latter suggestion, that the development of the universe depends upon a deepening relationship of its participants. And the great example from the history of life that I want to lift up for you is the transition from unicellular organisms to plants, animals, and fungi. Now, even though we don't know a lot about these transformations, and scientists are investigating them deeply, even though we don't have a consensus theory, but what we do have is some very important insights into how this took place. Here's the first one. If you go back in time before there were any multicellular organisms, and you have all of these single cells interacting in the ocean, it seems pretty clear that none of them, no one cell, had a blueprint of the future. I mean, it's almost comical, but it's this realization that these little organisms, they don't have brains, so they don't think and plan for the future the way we might. But nevertheless, they found a way to interact with one another, deepening their relationships, moving life into a more complex order. And out of that move came forth elephants and cactus plants. So that my suggestion for our moment is to for us to abandon once and for all the notion that humans are here to manage the planet, to manage the so-called natural resources of the planet. It is we are being called to a much deeper activity, and that is, as I've said before, to build the nervous system of a planet that is actually entering into a conscious participation of its evolution. And this, a new form of intelligence is required, at least a new form of intelligence that we can see at work in other examples in the history of life. And the one that I think is so beautiful is that of the murmuration of starlings. So this amazing event of when you have the hundreds and thousands of birds, and they're sweeping through the sky, and they're able to proceed without any one leader. In fact, what is taking place is that the leadership is moving from bird to bird to bird to bird, and out of that, a collective intelligence manifests in the murmuration of the starlings, so that they are able to avoid predators that otherwise might be able to capture and eat them. And I think of this as an example of what of what is required for us, how we can actually participate in the deep creativity of bringing forth this planetary nervous system. And it begins, I think, with the realization that we are part of the transition, and we are consciously participating in it, and we are the nexus in which it is taking place. It's so that we have this kind of, it's like a bizarre situation. We can talk about these transitions in the past, and we're looking back in time, and we have kind of an objective distance we can have from them. But when we talk about this transition, we're talking about it from inside, so that it's not being governed by any one person or any group of people. There is no plan, and yet the decisions and the creativity that make this happen are surfacing within us. And maybe just the last point of what I want to say to get this across is to say something about this recognition that we're looking at and thinking about a transition that we are. We're simultaneously aware of it, and we are it. So, but I have two examples for you to think about. And like tonight when you go out, and before you get in your car and drive away, or before you go to the kitchen and have that last drink before you go to bed, go outside and look up at the stars. Now, we know, That means my time's up. Okay, then very
No,
quickly.
no problem.
So we know that when we look at the stars, we're seeing the stellar processes that actually gave birth to us. We are the result of the creativity of the stars. So when we're looking at the stars, we're looking at the processes that gave birth to us looking at the stars. That's the folding back that happens with human consciousness. Let me say it one more time. When we look at the stars, we are looking at that which is looking. Now, but the same thing holds when we enter into deep dialogue with another person, with another entity. When we are in dialogue, we are dialoguing with that which is becoming us. This is, to feel this, is to enter into that collective intelligence that is at work, bringing forth a nervous system for the planet. Let me read my last line. This is who we are. We are the individual persons in whom the planetary nervous system comes forth. The Earth community as a whole awakens to itself. Participation in this process in a conscious manner is what it means to be a human. Thank you very much. Those of you in Indonesia and those of you in Oregon, not to mention New Jersey.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to ask a couple of questions, but I just want to be sure people know to write your questions in the Q&A box, not in the chat box, but in the Q&A box, because that's what I'm reading. I will be reading that to get questions to give to Brian. So type your questions right into that Q&A box. The Q&A box is right at the bottom of your screen. You just click on that and right in there. Okay, so Brian, in this latest book, Hidden Heart of the Cosmos, you talk a lot about sort of practices for, and you were just sort of getting into that.
Yeah,
about
another one.
How to bring about this new consciousness that we really need in order to relate to the universe in this radically new way. And you talk about, you remember where you talk about the Milky Way as a manta ray. And I was just wondering if you could, that was so beautiful, the way you describe it in the book. And I was just wondering if you could explain that for us.
You mean the shape? The shape?
Sorry, the galaxy as a manta ray.
Yeah. But I mean the shape.
Through space.
Okay,
yeah.
let me tell you a couple things. So, a lot of people, when they talk about the Milky Way galaxy, they describe it as a pancake with a bulge in the middle. I just find that so depressing. I mean, a pancake, right? It's just like this little domestic thing there in a pot. So I wanted something that that captured the vitality and the livingness of a galaxy. You see, that one of the things Thomas Berry was so keen on conveying was that the modern mentality regards the universe as a collection of objects. And well, if you start off with the universe as a collection of objects, I mean, capitalism and consumerism and the destruction of the planet, it's almost inevitable for a powerful species like us. So that it's like we got to get out of that idea that the universe is filled with inert objects, and especially the Milky Way galaxy, because the Milky Way galaxy constructed life. I mean, that's what happened. The Milky Way galaxy constructed stars with planets, and one of these planets came forth with life. So we have to see the Milky Way galaxy as this powerful source of life and intelligence. It's not an accident we're here. We're here because the dynamics of the Milky Way are that good. They're that good. So I wanted a manta ray has that, if you watch them go through the water, and they're alive, of course. And the Milky Way galaxy, it has that, it's thin like a manta ray, and it wobbles a little bit, it moves. So that I wanted to get a feeling for the Milky Way as a living entity, where life now is taken in the largest sense, of a galaxy with the capacity to bring forth, peacocks.
Great, great. Susan Curry says, you said the starlings move without a leader and mentioned that this way allows them to avoid a predator. Two thoughts. Might they also move that way for the fun of it? Secondly, what do you conceive would be the predator that our species would collectivize to survive?
Two great questions. By great, I mean, I don't know, but I mean, I like them. What was the first one again? It was, oh yeah.
Are they doing it
I
for
said they had
fun?
no leader. I probably said that, but the correct way of thinking about this is that leadership moves around like a wave, so that in a certain moment, a bird will find itself in a leadership position, and it affects the nearby birds, which affects the other nearby birds, and then leadership moves to another part. So it's this roiling, these waves of leadership. So I would say it's like a fast moving, a transfer of power throughout the collective of this murmurating group. Now, what would be our predator? What would be our predator? Okay, I will. Let me give you a response that really goes back to Thomas Berry's interpretation of Dante's Divine Comedy. So I'll just tell you what Thomas would say about it, that humans become trapped in hell. They become trapped in hell when their imagination freezes. So we fixate on a certain point of view, and that is our ruin. That's what all of hell is about, according to Dante. So I think our chief predator would be our frozen imaginations, so that because we have this form of consciousness that folds back on itself, it's when we fixate, and there's so a fixated imagination expresses itself in the forms of activities that we call racism, sexism, anthropocentrism. This is what ruins us. This is what is eating us alive.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that question, Susan. That was really great. Phil Gang, we know Phil. Hi, Phil. Phil asked, just to add to Chardin and Vernadsky's notion of the noosphere, in Montessori's last public lecture in 1950, she was 80, she proposed the existence of a psychosphere and the unity of humankind in the psychosphere where there is only one civilization.
Oh, it's awesome. Phil, so great. I love it. Yeah. When I got to tell you a story that Phil, you probably know this, but others don't. I just loved it so much. So Thomas Berry and I get together. We worked for 10 years trying to tell the story of the universe as best we could, rooted in science, in a meaningful way. And then we were all done. It was at the publishers. And then Thomas Berry called me up and he said, Brian, Maria Montessori scooped us by 50 years. And, she was amazing genius. Yeah, thanks, Phil. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Psychosphere, exactly. One civilization. one planet, one intelligence with all of these differentiated forms. You know,
Yeah.
that's the when I was talking about moving into dialogue, where suddenly you were so deeply involved, you realize that the interlocutor is who you are, and you are who she or he is.
Mm.
You know, what the other part of it is, even as we move into that deep intimacy, we simultaneously become more ourselves. That is the
Mm.
fascinating coincidence of opposites, that the deepening intimacy gives rise to the greater diversity.
Yeah. Denise Tangney says, blessings for your part of the great work. Can you address your understanding of the need of diversity, which is just what
Oh,
you were
there we did
saying,
it.
the
Yes.
need of diversity and bringing wholeness to personal and organizational sustainability?
Yeah. I just gave you what I had to say about diversity. I think they go together.
Mm-hmm.
The greater the communion, the richer the diversity in terms of relationships, but also in terms of wholeness. Uh, I want to give you another insight that comes from Thomas Berry. He said that every entity has two dimensions, a microphase and a macrophase. You can use different words. We can say this, that every entity has an individual reality and it has a cosmological reality. So that there's a way in which, in the most general sense, but this would hold with smaller wholes as well. But in a general sense, each of us is an individual with a very particular biography and a name and everything else. At the same time, the atoms were composed by the stars. You know, our brains were developed by the fish and the mammals. You know, our languages. So at the same time as being an individual, we are the whole universe in the form of a human. I mean, just like an elephant is the whole universe in the form of an elephant. So we have these. We are, each of us. We are individuals and we are wholes. Now, in modern society, again, this is Thomas Berry speaking. In modern society, we have emphasized the individual aspect to the point that we've forgotten the whole. So remembering the whole as real, right? As a source of cause is fundamental for the transformation towards a planetary nervous system. The planet as a whole is alive.
Yeah, yeah. Do you remember a few years ago, Brian, when I went to meet with Freeman Dyson here at the Institute for Advanced Study here in
Yes.
Princeton, and I asked you to tell
Yeah.
me what I should ask him, and you said, well, ask him about world soul. What are his thoughts about world soul? Because apparently Freeman Dyson's mother had talked to him about that.
Yeah.
And then he said, this was his quote. This is what he told me. Mind is built into the universe in some fashion. It's not something that humans invented. Mind is not something that humans invented. It's more general. A world soul could be a collection of different kinds of mind. And then as I was reading your book, your philosophical doctrine of omnicentrism,
Yeah.
sounded like it totally related to that because you have all these different kinds
Yeah.
of mind or these different kinds of consciousness that are contributing to the whole. Can you say more about that?
Well, I like what you said. It is one of the practices you mentioned that in Hidden Heart, I have a couple little practices, and here's another one, and this relates to what you just asked, and it also relates to the previous question about a whole. And I don't know. I get a lot out of this one, but try it. If you have a friend that's a dog, or maybe a cat, if you just and that right? So, and you just imagine what you do is you contemplate your dog friend from what can be called time developmental consciousness, meaning that you take the perspective of the whole. So, and you see the dog, your dog, back through time, and going back in and becoming a wolf, and then back through that into the reptilian stage, and then back through that into the oceans, and then all the way back to the unicellular organisms that gathered together and started the lineage that led to your dog. And then what you realize is that if you know the personality of your dog, you're stuck with this amazing realization that the cells of your dog's body bring forth its personality, its mind.
Yeah.
If you go back to the unicellular ancestors, they didn't have that kind of mind, but by bringing these minds together, I mean, it really blows my mind, really. And that is exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
We humans now, we're bringing together, we're entering into a deeper communion to awaken a planetary nervous system.
Yeah.
And that is what the Deeptime Network does. Like right now we have, not one of us knows what to do, but in conversation, you see, we do know. We will find our way. We will listen. We will be changed by the conversation.
Yeah.
We will deepen, and then we will change others, and back and forth, and then growing up out of the whole network is an understanding that wouldn't exist except for the collective.
Yeah.
Jennifer, you're one of the nodes on the planet where planetary mind is finding its way forward.
Yeah,
No doubt about that.
I really feel that. Here's a question. By the way, we have a lot of questions here from people who are asking about practices. So just everybody should know that speaking of the mind sphere here, the question about practices, like how do we actually bring about this new consciousness, in terms of a practice, is very much on people's minds. I can see it in the questions here. And then here's a question about, do we embrace collapse or do we work to avoid it? What do we do about collapse? Of course, that's one of the powers of the universe that you talk about. So what do we do with that in terms of this, building the nervous system?
Again, a great question about collapse, and the other one is about practice. So, first of all, I want to suggest the obvious is that, next month, Jennifer, organize another webinar on practice, and the month after that, organize one on collapse, and others, and we find our way, and we can prepare for that. People read, study, converse, and then. So what I'd like to say about collapse is we have to take as our model the universe itself. How does the universe proceed? And it's mysterious, no doubt. But what's amazing is that, the universe proceeds. Universe proceeds through collapse. It creates through collapse. It creates through death. So the industrial view of death is that it's a curse. I mean, it goes back maybe to certain interpretations of the Bible. Death came from a moral mistake of Adam and Eve, but this whole idea that death is alien and a mistake and to be avoided, and even if it costs $10 million, just keep us alive as long as possible. No, death is embraced by the universe. It's a blessing. It's a way of activating creativity in many different levels. So what we want to avoid is stupid collapse, needless collapse. Now discerning between the two is something that requires a lot of conversation. But I mean, the idea of losing the elephants is just so horrific that it drives me insane, drives us insane. So, one thing I would say is that yes, we are living in an era of collapse, and some of that collapse is helpful for bringing forth a new planet. It's some of it is helpful. So, for instance, the collapse of our addiction to consumer lifestyle, the collapse of our inner system of making all judgment based on money and capital. See, these are aspects of the world that need to collapse, need to be deconstructed. If human mentality is so powerful, then its derangement in the form of a worldview that leads to needless destruction, its derangement needs to collapse.
Yeah. So following on that idea of collapse, Robert Athakal, who was the founder of Tara Mitra in India, he is in this webinar right now. And he asked the question because he works with about 2,500 schools in India, and they have members of 250,000 people.
Wow.
It's just huge. So he says, okay, hold on one second. Okay, here it is. I have come across this question from many students last year. It looks like life will become extinct in 30 to 50 years. Many anticipate it to an earlier date. How does this approach, this big history or new story approach, how do you think about this question? What do you say to this question? I think that's what Robert is saying. I mean, is that true? I mean, that life is going to go extinct in 30 to 50 years. What do we say to the children when they ask this question?
Robert,
Yes.
do you mean human life or life?
He's saying life. He's saying it looks like life.
Yeah, the things I've read make it seem very unlikely that life will end in 30 or 50 years. Even if there's a nuclear war, even if there's ecological collapse of various kinds. At least what I've read convinces me, or at least I'm confident in hoping that life will not collapse. I think there will be the collapse of some beautiful species, but I find it not believable that life will. Life is so inventive, so creative, and it will find all sorts of ways into the future, is what I believe. For what it's worth, Robert.
Yeah. Thank you, Robert, for that question. And hi, Lucy. Glad you came in, even if you're late. I see that. Michael Duffy, author of Children of the Universe, he asked the question, how can our planetary consciousness relate to the billions of other places where consciousness likely exists?
Well, wow. Hildegard of Bingen. This 11th century, 12th century Christian saint, she 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 had an alternative interpretation of the Garden of Eden. So the common one was that Adam and Eve sinned and so forth, but and having to do with fig leaves, I guess. And but Hildegard, in Hildegard's view, the fundamental mistake made by Adam and Eve was that they weren't grateful enough. They didn't enjoy themselves enough. And I just find this fantastic because it in her interpretation that we find ourselves in this stunning existence, and to if our minds aren't completely deranged, we are simply left wondering about the beauty of where we are and the grandeur of the universe. It's just simply fantastic. So now, concerning say the possibility of conscious life elsewhere, there are two possibilities. One is that there's life throughout the galaxy. And if that's the case, I mean, like, wow, wouldn't that be interesting to encounter it? Can you imagine how many stories they have to tell? They probably have ways of dancing we would never have invented, ways of lovemaking that, that would really help us out. And I mean, just the possibility of joy, it just explodes. So that's a universe I would love to live in. Now, on the other hand, what if the only place in the universe where there's conscious life is here on Earth? Wow. If that's the case, every living being becomes more important than we could possibly say with all of the world's literature. I mean, that too would be an amazing universe to live in. You see, so that I think is the first step. This is Heschel, Rabbi Heschel. He was saying the first step towards wisdom is awe. We have to find our way into awe if we have any hope of becoming fully mature, wise human beings.
Yeah.
That's how I think of it.
Well, yeah. This question sort of relates to that. Rich Blundell. Hi, Rich. Haven't talked to you in a while, Rich. Where are you? Rich says, can Brian discern any difference between, say, the psychedelic revolution of the 1960s and today? And it sounds like maybe that relates to, I don't know, higher consciousness and this, huge leap that we're going through at this point. Is this somehow important?
Yeah, I miss the psychedelic revolution. I'm embarrassed to say it, Rich. I should have been there in the front lines.
You already have it, Brian.
I played basketball and I don't know, just I missed it. So if the psychedelic revolution is like what's happening today, it must have really been something. Because really, we're into some very deep transformation. That's for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends were Rich,
Jeff Ainscow says, embrace Mother Earth throughout each day in the place where you live and allow her to imprint you and mentor you each moment of each day. Open your heart and soul to her. She is waiting to be our companion each day. And then we will know love. That's from Karen Harwell. Oh, that's beautiful, Jeff. Thank you for that.
And Karen. Thanks, Karen.
And Karen, yes.
She apparently wrote it.
Right.
Thanks for bringing that up, Jeff. That's beautiful. That's
yeah.
That is so Karen. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's so many questions here. It's like overwhelming to try to choose from them. And we're actually already at 8:00. And I said I would stop this at 8:00.
But live the questions. I mean, these are to come across a great question. I'm sure they're great questions.
Yeah, there's so many great.
They're just, that's what we need to live into the great questions.
Yeah. Okay. How about we'll do one more. This is an anonymous question. Is the implication that we as individuals must collectively and completely empty ourselves of egoic self, along with all our differences and distinctions of concepts and beliefs, turn inwards towards our conscious self and rest without nothing but a deep sense of being, and somehow in this unknown emptiness enter into a unit of consciousness?
See, that would be a great question for the session on practice.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that would be
Right.
fun for everybody to dwell on.
Right. But I think he or she is asking, is there an implication that this is what we should be doing? I'm not sure there is in what you're saying, Brian, is there?
You know, I'm not even sure what all the implications are. I really am not. And I think that we, the universe somehow knew how to make galaxies, even though there were no brains back then, right? I mean, there's deep wisdom in the universe. And so somehow we know how to bring forth a living planet with a collective intelligence that will move us towards a deeper harmony. That's what I believe. And when I say the universe knows, I mean it knows through us. But so I think we know more than we're aware of right now.
Mm.
And we will find out what we know through our deepening dialogue. That's what I'm committed to.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Brian. This is Chan Hu says, I wonder where you are, Chan. Maybe you could type that into the chat box. Universe is a Green Dragon's Korean translation author, Chan Ran.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
do you know this person?
Yes, this is one of my doctoral students.
Oh.
And he's just translated The Universe is a Green Dragon into Korean.
Oh my gosh. Oh, wow.
Which I expect you to read soon, Jennifer.
Okay. Chan Ran feels so amazing allurement with all people around the world listening to Brian.
Thank you, Chalan. Thank you.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
Now get back to work, study.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, we have a poll to take here. And so let's get this poll up. And you'll be able to answer this poll. Here's the question. And if you want to explain the question a little bit more, Brian, you can. The question is, on some level, do you feel you've known this orientation to the universe, like you've known it for a long time, even if you haven't articulated it? Is there anything more you want to add to that, Brian?
Yeah, I just to say that my guess is that intuitively we feel we're involved in something large, and we may not know exactly what it is, but I think I'm wondering if many of us have these intuitions about participating in this terrestrial or even cosmological action.
And when you say intuitions, like what kinds of intuitions, if you could, capture it in a nutshell?
It'd be like, when you can't quite remember the tune of a song, you just can't quite bring it back, but it's there. That's what I mean. Sort of a nonverbal inclination.
Okay. Right. Okay. So I'm going to launch this poll and you can answer yes or no. On some level, do you feel you've known this orientation in the universe, even if you haven't articulated it? Well, it seems like everybody is saying yes.
Oh, cool. Hey, I'm trying to vote. I won't take my yes.
Oh, let's see. Sorry about that. Maybe I should have. I think it's just the.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think people are still voting.
Yeah, by intuitive, I mean it's like falling in love. You know, after we fall in love, we can look back and you go, oh, there's this, that, for all the reasons. But
Mm-hmm.
when you fall in love, you fall in love. You don't reason your way into it unless you
Right,
believe in, logic overall.
right. Okay, so while people are still answering that, I think we have just a couple more, and then we really will stop. Okay. Um, wow. Oh, Betsy Crawford says, I went up to Miriam after first hearing her speak and told her I'd been waiting to hear this all my life.
Betsy.
Thank you, Betsy.
There's an example. I bet you didn't know what word she was waiting for, right? But you knew she was waiting for something. That's
Yeah,
great.
exactly. Okay. All right, great. Well, it looks like a lot of people answered their question in the Q&A box. So they might not end up being counted in the poll itself. So, but that's okay.
It's
All right.
Iowa all over again.
Right.
Count those up tonight. I want you staying up all night, Jennifer. Q&A box.
I have to get a paper version of each person's vote. Oh gosh. Okay, this is so much fun. So yeah, wow. Okay, collapse. Oh, there's Ezekiel. Oh my gosh. um, Hi, Jennifer and Brian. You two are the best. Oh, this is nice. Thank you, Ezekiel and Jennifer. Oh, okay. How incredible that even in this moment right now, we in this webinar are engaged as the universe on the very front edge of the unfurling wave of the present.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
the awakening we must sustain with every breath.
Beautiful.
Oh, Ezekiel.
Ah, ah.
Now you know why we love having Ezekiel on our team. Thank you so much for that. Gary Robbins from Pachamama, will you please enter all the questions for our own contemplation? Yes, I will. I will get the copies of, I'll get a list of all the questions and I'll send them out to everybody. And
Yeah,
I will
good
send,
idea. I'd love to see
and
them.
the chat comments too. So everybody will get everything. Okay. All right. I'm just going to, I'm not sure that everybody's answering this. So I'm just going to end this poll. And it looks 96%, are
Oh, wow.
definitely
Very
intuiting
cool.
this. Yeah. Okay.
Very cool.
This is great. Okay. So now, okay, so a few more things before we close. Feels like we should just keep going, but I guess we can't do that. Too bad. Okay, be sure to sign up on the site for free and just to get notices about upcoming programs. Just go to the site and sign up for free. We have a Journey of the Universe study group that is going to start on March 23rd. So this will accompany the Coursera course, but we'll have our own group that will join you on your journey to study the Journey of the Universe content that will be on Coursera. I'm going to send information to everybody about this. March 24th, we have a program on Birth to Three, Beginner's Mind in Montessori Education. So, like, what are the steps we go through to get to know the universe? And this will be Darla Miller will give this program on Birth to Three. We have lots of bundled packages for schools and training centers. So take a look. I'm going to send you info about that. If you're doing this tonight for CPD Hour 1, send your name and AMS membership number to hello@dtnetwork.org. If you're not a Montessori teacher, send your name and we'll give you that kind of a different kind of certificate. We can only give the certificates to people who actually participated in the live event. I will be sending a recording to everybody who registered. Memberships and donations. You can become a premium member for only $8 per month, and you get access to all the courses and the course catalog, and you can add resources and events and blog and promote your work and blah, 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 tons of things. We have over 35,000 followers on our Facebook page, so we push your stuff out onto our Facebook page and promote it in lots of different places. If you know people who can give larger donations, of course, we're looking for that, because it's a lot to support the site, support the community, and we need a lot of computer programming to keep this vital and moving forward. Again, be sure to sign up on the site if you haven't, for free, to get notices, and write to us at hello@dtnetwork.org. So for our closing, I just want to read a quote. We've been doing so much great stuff here, and very short. We are not lacking. This is from Thomas Berry, from Dynamics of the Future and the Great Work. We are not lacking in the dynamic forces needed to create the future. We live immersed in a sea of energy beyond all comprehension. So, with that, blessings to all of you. Have a great night, have a great morning, have a great afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And come on the network. We're going to be offering many more things. And it's just a joy to be with you all and connected to you all. Thank you. Brian, thank you.
It was great. So great being with you, Jennifer.
Been incredible.
All the great people.
Yeah.
Everybody take care.
Yeah. Okay, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.